Ethan Walker had spent most of his adult life believing the forest was kinder to him than people ever had been. It didn't judge his worn boots, patched jacket, or the fatigue carved deep into his face. And on this particular gray morning, as he and his 7-year-old son Liam pushed through a tangle of cedar branches, the silence felt almost welcoming. Their dog, Rusty, trotted ahead, tail flicking with calm focus. Ethan kept one hand on Liam's shoulder to steady the boy on uneven ground. They'd been walking for hours, running from nowhere specific, but heading toward anywhere that felt safer. Liam wasn't a complainer by nature, but exhaustion clung to his steps. Still, he held tight to the carved wooden stick his father had whittled for him, a makeshift walking staff he treated like treasure. Ethan glanced down at his son now and then, quietly marveling at how a child born into so much chaos could carry so much light. Rusty suddenly stopped, ears up, body stiff. Ethan felt old instincts return, caution tightening his chest. "What's wrong, boy?" he whispered, kneeling beside the dog. Rusty's nose pointed toward dense pines ahead, his posture alert, but not fearful. Something was there. Ethan scanned the tree line, every sense sharpening. He'd learned long ago that when Rusty reacted like this, ignoring him meant regret. "Stay close," he murmured to Liam. The boy nodded, gripping Ethan's jacket with his free hand. They stepped forward, weaving between ancient trunks. The forest floor dipped unexpectedly, revealing faint impressions in the soil. Footprints? Tools? Ethan knelt, brushing away damp leaves. The shapes were too symmetrical to be natural. Rusty tugged forward again, stopping near a mound of earth that rose strangely from the forest floor, as though something beneath had forced the soil upward. Ethan frowned. He'd roamed forests for years, first as a young man running from grief, then as a father running from debts he never wanted. He knew natural formations. This wasn't one. The mound curved slightly, like a long spine. Liam stepped beside him. "Dad, it looks like something's under there." His voice shook with a mixture of fear and excitement. Rusty pawed at the mound urgently, whining in a way Ethan had only heard twice before, both times when the dog had found something dangerous but important. Ethan brushed away more soil and felt something shockingly hard beneath his fingertips. Metal. Cold, solid metal buried under layers of moss and dirt. Ethan's pulse picked up. "Liam, stand back a little." The boy obeyed, though his curiosity kept him leaning forward. Ethan used a fallen branch to scrape away more soil, revealing a subtle but unmistakable seam, a rectangular outline. Rusty barked once, tail rigid. "Dad," Liam whispered, "is that a door?" Ethan swallowed. "I think so, or something like it." The seam formed a perfect frame, too precise to be an accident. Years of forest, debris had disguised it well. Liam's eyes grew wide. Who would bury a door in the woods? Ethan didn't have an answer, but he knew one thing. Whoever hid this didn't want it found. He dug around the edges until a small metal handle appeared. Rusty whined anxiously. Ethan hesitated. Opening unknown things in the wilderness wasn't wise, but walking away felt worse. Something about this place tugged at him, like the universe whispering that he'd been led here on purpose. He wrapped his fingers around the handle. Dirt crumbled into the opening as he lifted. The hatch resisted, then groaned loudly, sending a shower of soil down the sides. Liam gasped as a dark space appeared beneath. A rush of musty, stale air escaped, carrying scents of rust, wood, and time long forgotten. Ethan held Liam back with one arm. Rusty lowered his head, sniffing deeply but without growling, meaning whatever was below wasn't alive, at least not recently. Liam peered downward. "It's Stairs? He breathed. Ethan angled himself to see better. Metal steps descended into darkness, barely wide enough for one person. A faint glint of something metallic caught what little light filtered through the trees. Ethan exhaled slowly. "It's a bunker," he whispered. "An old one." Liam's voice softened. "Why would anyone hide a bunker here?" Ethan scanned the surrounding woods. Nothing looked disturbed. No trails, no signs of recent visitors, no prints but their own. Whoever built this had done it decades ago. Perhaps a prepper, a hermit, someone hiding from the world just like Ethan had been trying to do. Liam squeezed Ethan's wrist. "Are we going down there?" Ethan hesitated, torn between fear and necessity. They had no home, no safety, no food left apart from 2 granola bars, and the forest was merciless at night. "We'll take it slow," Ethan said. "If anything feels wrong, we go back immediately. Understand?" Liam nodded bravely. Rusty slipped inside first, descending a few cautious steps. Ethan followed, guiding Liam behind him. The air grew cooler as they moved downward. The narrow staircase ended in a cramped entry chamber with dirt walls reinforced by old wooden beams. Ethan raised his flashlight, an aging tool he rarely used, but today was blessedly functional. The beam bounced off a heavy steel door coated in dust. Someone had welded extra plates across the surface. Next to it was a rusted panel with a broken keypad. "Whoever lived here didn't want company," Ethan muttered. Liam hugged his walking stick tighter. Ethan pushed on the steel door. To his surprise, it shifted slightly. Not locked, only swollen from age. He leaned his weight into it. With a harsh groan, it opened, revealing a large underground room. His flashlight swept across abandoned shelves, scattered crates, and a long table covered in dusty canned goods, long past expiration. But that wasn't what caught Ethan's breath. Across the far wall hung maps, dozens of them, some marked with symbols, circles, arrows. Liam stepped closer, awe widening his eyes. "Dad, someone lived here for a long time." Rusty sniffed at a corner, tail wagging gently now. Ethan approached a table pushed against the wall. A lantern sat atop it, untouched for years. Beside it lay a small notebook, half covered in dust. He brushed it clean, revealing a name etched faintly on the cover, Raymond Calloway. The name meant nothing to Ethan, but his hands trembled slightly as he opened the first page. The handwriting was uneven but deliberate. "If you found this place, I either survived too long or not long enough." Liam leaned in. "What does that mean?" Ethan shook his head softly. "I don't know yet." But he could feel the mystery thickening around them. He flipped through more pages. Entries logged storms, animal sightings, strange lights in the forest at night. But then the journal's tone shifted, fear creeping into the words. "Something is wrong with the mountain. I heard it moving, not the wind, not erosion, something else." Ethan frowned. He'd lived outdoors long enough to know mountains didn't move. Liam pointed at a sketch on another page, an illustration of an ancient pine with a massive bulge on its side. Ethan's heartbeat fluttered. He recognized that tree. They had passed it earlier without realizing its importance. "We need to check that," Ethan murmured. "It might be connected." Liam swallowed. "Is it safe?" Ethan crouched to meet his gaze. "I won't let anything hurt you. We only look." Rusty nudged the notebook, as if agreeing. Before leaving the bunker, Ethan stored the journal and a few intact supplies into his pack: rope, a small hatchet, a durable flashlight. Whoever lived here had once been prepared for anything. Ethan hoped some of that preparedness remained useful. Before closing the bunker hatch, he paused. Something deep inside told him this place wasn't abandoned by accident. Back outside, the woods felt different, quieter, heavier. The ancient pine stood tall just beyond a rocky incline, its trunk twisted by decades of storms. Ethan approached cautiously, Liam clutching Rusty's fur as they followed. Up close, the bulge was massive, an unnatural swollen knot rising from the bark like the tree was hiding something inside. Ethan placed a hand on the bark. It was warm, too warm. Liam noticed too. Trees aren't warm like that, right? Ethan didn't answer. The bulge had a faint outline, an oval shape, almost like a sealed cavity. Something man-made, something placed there. Rusty growled, not at the tree itself, but at a lower section of bark. He pawed eagerly, pushing aside soft layers of rotten wood. Ethan knelt and helped, clearing debris until a small metal plate appeared. His pulse jumped. The plate was engraved with the same name from the journal, R. Calloway, and beneath it, a warning: "Do not open alone." Liam's voice tightened. "Dad, maybe we shouldn't." Ethan shook his head gently. "We don't open anything yet. We just look." But he already knew he wasn't leaving until he understood what Raymond Calloway had hidden. The bulge seemed hollow beneath Ethan's knuckles. He pressed his ear against the bark. A faint echo responded, almost like empty space. His mind raced. Why would someone hide something inside a living tree? And how had it grown around whatever was placed there? Liam tugged Ethan's sleeve. "Maybe it's treasure," he whispered hopefully. Ethan gave a tired smile. "Maybe. Or maybe it's something more important than treasure." Rusty barked once, sharp and insistent. Ethan exhaled. "Okay, we'll cut a small section, just enough to see what we're dealing with." He pulled the small hatchet from his pack. He swung lightly at first, careful not to harm the tree more than necessary. Bark splintered away, revealing layers of lighter wood beneath. Rusty stayed alert beside him, tail rigid. Liam kept his distance, worry clouding his eyes. "Dad, be careful." "Always," Ethan murmured. After several controlled chops, the hatchet hit something solid. Metal again, but smoother this time. Ethan cleared more wood. A curved lid emerged, ancient and embedded deep. Liam gasped. "Is that a capsule?" Ethan stepped back, stunned. It looked like a small container, maybe military, maybe scientific, completely encased by decades of tree growth. Ethan wiped sweat from his brow. Someone hid this a long time ago. Liam shifted nervously. "Should we open it?" Ethan didn't answer immediately. The journal's warning resurfaced in his mind. "Do not open alone." He glanced around the empty forest. Alone was exactly what they were. But leaving a sealed metal capsule inside a tree without understanding its purpose felt reckless. Rusty barked sharply again, 3 short barks, his signal for danger. Ethan froze. The forest had gone eerily silent. No birds, no wind, nothing but the ancient tree creaking softly behind them. He turned slowly, scanning the tree line. Shadows stretched between pines, unmoving, too still. Liam clung to Rusty, sensing something was wrong. "Dad, why is everything so quiet?" Ethan steadied his voice. "Sometimes the forest goes quiet before a storm." But there was no storm coming. He could feel it. Something else was watching them. Something familiar with this forest in a way he wasn't. He gripped the hatchet more tightly. "We're heading back to the bunker," he whispered. "Now." Liam nodded quickly. Rusty circled them protectively as they backed away from the tree. As they retreated, Ethan felt the weight of the forest pressing against his spine, like eyes tracking their every step. When they reached the bunker hatch and slipped inside, he closed it gently but firmly, forcing a slow breath. Liam crawled into his father's arms, trembling. "Dad, what was that?" Ethan looked toward the stairwell, listening to the oppressive silence outside. "I don't know," he answered quietly. But whatever Raymond Calloway hid, someone or something didn't want it found. Rusty lay beside them, ears pinned back, staring at the sealed hatch, and Ethan knew this discovery was only the beginning. Ethan barely slept that night. The bunker felt safe, but the silence above gnawed at him. Rusty never left the hatch, keeping his head low, growling under his breath at sounds Ethan couldn't hear. Liam curled beside his father on the old cot, breathing unevenly. Ethan sat with the journal open, reading by the dim lantern light. Raymond Calloway's entries shifted from survival notes to frantic warnings. "The mountain hums at night. Sometimes it answers when I speak." Ethan shut the notebook, chills creeping up his spine. Whatever Calloway had discovered in this forest had terrified him enough to hide inside a tree. At dawn, Ethan gently woke Liam. Rusty had not slept at all. His red eyes stared at the hatch as if waiting for something to return. "Dad?" Liam whispered. "Is it still out there?" Ethan hesitated, then nodded. "But so are we." He squeezed the boy's shoulder. "And we're not leaving until we understand what we found." Rusty barked once, tail stiff. Ethan strapped his pack, secured the hatchet, and tucked the journal inside. When he opened the hatch, cold morning air rushed in. But the forest soundscape was back, birds calling, leaves rustling, almost as if nothing had happened. But Ethan knew better. Nature didn't return to normal that quickly. The forest was performing, hiding something beneath its familiar sounds. They walked cautiously toward the ancient pine again. Sunlight filtered through the branches like cold gold, making the bark's peculiar bulge even more prominent. Liam stuck close to Rusty, one hand gripping the dog's collar. Ethan approached the exposed metal capsule. In daylight, the surface looked older, etched with faded insignias he didn't recognize. Symbols resembling intersecting circles, lines curving in patterns that almost looked mathematical. "Dad, that's not military, is it?" Ethan shook his head slowly. "No, too strange." He placed a hand on the curved lid and felt vibrations. Faint, rhythmic, like a distant heartbeat. He pulled back immediately. Rusty growled deeply, fur bristling along his spine. Liam stepped behind his father. "It's alive?" Ethan forced calm. "No, but something inside is active." He traced the edge of the capsule again, noticing thin grooves, perhaps a lock mechanism grown into the tree. Raymond Calloway must have known what was inside. Why hide it? Why trap it inside living wood? Ethan lifted his hatchet. "We need to free the capsule enough to see the latch." Liam swallowed anxiously, but nodded. With slow, deliberate swings, Ethan cut away old bark and softened wood. Each strike echoed, strangely, like the tree was hollow far deeper than the bulge suggested. Rusty circled nervously, whining. When Ethan peeled another thick piece of bark away, Liam gasped. A metallic emblem was revealed beneath, an embossed crest, a stylized mountain peak with 3 concentric rings beneath it. Ethan froze. He had seen that symbol once before, on a brochure shoved into his hands at a bus station years ago. The Polaris Geological Research Institute, a secretive organization his mother used to call government ghosts. Ethan's stomach twisted. Why would Polaris hide something in a tree? Liam didn't know who Polaris was, but he understood the danger in his father's voice. "Dad, should we stop?" Ethan considered it, but curiosity had already wrapped around him like claws, and something even deeper tugged at him, as though this was connected to his life long before he ever entered this forest. "We go slow," he said. "If at any moment it feels wrong, we stop." Ethan continued clearing wood until the capsule's full outline emerged, a tube-shaped container about 3 feet tall, sealed with an intricate 4-part locking ring. Liam knelt beside the tree, brushing away wood dust with small, careful hands. "Dad, someone carved words here." Ethan looked. Hidden beneath bark was a line of etched text. "Do not let them find it." His blood ran cold. "Them?" Liam whispered. Ethan rested a hand on his son's back. "I don't know, but we're not letting anyone take anything from us again. Ever." Rusty suddenly snapped his head toward the ridge above them, ears stiffening. A crack echoed, like a branch breaking under weight. Ethan straightened instantly. Someone was close. "Down," he whispered sharply. Liam and Rusty crouched. Ethan scanned the tree line. Dense pines swayed lazily, but nothing moved between them. No shadow darted, no animal fled, just stillness. But Ethan's instincts screamed. "We're going back to the bunker," he whispered. He grabbed the capsule's edge, testing whether it could be removed altogether. Surprisingly, it lifted slightly, just enough to confirm that it wasn't fused entirely into the tree. He could extract it. With time. But time was the one thing they didn't have. Rusty barked sharply, then growled low. Something, or someone, was definitely watching. Ethan didn't wait to identify who. "Move," he ordered. They rushed back toward the bunker. Ethan kept Rusty ahead and Liam between them, his heart pounding louder than his footsteps. Something rustled overhead. Not animal movement. Steps. Following. Tracking. Ethan gripped Liam's arm and increased their pace. When they reached the bunker, Ethan shoved them inside. Rusty darted down the stairs instantly. Ethan lowered the hatch silently, leaving a tiny crack to listen. For several long seconds, nothing happened. Then, a shadow crossed the sunlit grass outside. Soft, deliberate footsteps crunched leaves. Someone paused directly above the hatch. Liam grabbed Ethan's sleeve, trembling. Ethan held his breath. A gloved hand brushed across the metal hatch. Slow, assessing. Rusty growled so quietly, Ethan felt it more than heard it. After a moment, the stranger walked away. Leaves rustled, branches swayed, and then silence. Ethan waited 3 full minutes before lowering the hatch fully. "Dad?" Liam whispered. "Who was that?" Ethan crouched to meet his eyes. Someone looking for the capsule. Someone who knew it was here. Liam's face paled. Rusty barked once, a short, crisp warning. Ethan grabbed the journal and opened to the final pages. His breath hitched at what he saw. Raymond Calloway had drawn the same emblem, the Polaris crest, over and over, scratching it into the pages as if haunted by it. Next to one of the drawings, an entry read, "They want the capsule. They lost containment years ago. They think I took it. They think I stole it. I didn't. I saved them." Liam leaned closer. Saved them from what? Ethan flipped the next page. One sentence sprawled across it like a confession carved under duress. What's inside it isn't dead. Ethan felt the room tilt. Something inside the capsule was alive? Impossible. Yet his instincts screamed otherwise. The next page was worse. "If they find me, they'll burn the mountain. They can't risk it escaping again." Ethan felt ice crawl up his spine. "Escape what?" Liam murmured. Ethan shut the notebook gently. Something Polaris wanted to bury. Literally. Rusty pawed at Ethan's knee anxiously. Ethan stood and began stuffing useful supplies into his pack. Rope, water purifier, old batteries, a small camping stove. Liam watched. We're leaving? Ethan shook his head. We're moving. Staying underground makes us sitting ducks. Liam frowned. But where? Ethan closed the pack. To the ridge. We need higher ground. They climbed the ladder and emerged cautiously. The forest felt wrong again. Too still, too watchful. Rusty sniffed the ground, zigzagging until he found a faint boot print, fresh, only minutes old. Ethan cursed under his breath. They're circling, he murmured. Looking for us. Liam bit his lip. But why us? Ethan didn't answer. He suspected Polaris wasn't just after the capsule. They might know Ethan found it. And if they knew who he was, then this wasn't random. As they trekked uphill, Ethan replayed the emblem in his mind. Polaris deals with geology, anomalies, seismic patterns, not living objects. Rusty suddenly froze again, nose pointed toward the east slope. A low hum drifted across the air, soft but unnatural. Ethan recognized it instantly. He'd heard machines like that during wildfire seasons. Drones. Liam panicked. Dad! Stay low, Ethan snapped. They ducked behind a cluster of fallen logs. A small drone skimmed above the treetops, scanning with a faint red beam. Rusty snarled silently, muscles tense. They're searching for heat signatures, Ethan whispered. Looking for the capsule. Or us. The drone hovered dangerously close, then zipped away. Liam exhaled shakily. Ethan knew they were running out of time. They pushed deeper into the forest, climbing higher until the trees thickened enough to create cover. When they finally reached the ridge, Ethan let Liam rest. The boy sat against a moss-covered boulder, catching his breath. Rusty patrolled the area with military precision. Ethan studied the valley below. Two dark figures moved between trees, too coordinated to be hikers. They're sweeping the area, Ethan muttered. Polaris? Liam asked. Ethan nodded. Most likely. Liam looked terrified. What do they want? Ethan exhaled slowly. They want whatever's inside that capsule, and they don't want witnesses. Rusty suddenly bolted toward a rock wall, barking loudly. Ethan ran after him, expecting danger, but found something else entirely. A narrow crevice opened between two massive slabs of granite, an entrance almost invisible unless you stood at the exact right angle. Ethan ducked inside. The passage curved inward, leading into a hidden alcove. Carved into the wall was another symbol, the Polaris crest, and beneath it a set of initials. R.C. Raymond Calloway had found this place too. Liam entered behind Ethan, eyes wide. Dad, is this where he hid? Ethan nodded slowly. Or where he left something for us. On the ground lay a wooden box preserved by the cold shade. Ethan opened it. Inside were handwritten maps, a compass, and an old key with the same concentric circle motif as the capsule. A note lay beneath the key. If you read this, they're coming. Do not open the capsule until you reach the place marked in red. Ethan unfolded one of the maps. A single red X was drawn deep within the mountain range, far from trails, far from civilization. Liam pointed. Dad, that's days away. Ethan exhaled. Yes, and we don't have days, but we have no choice. He packed the items quickly, then placed the box back where he found it. We follow the map, Ethan said. If Calloway trusted this place, so will we. Liam looked toward the forest, fear sharp in his eyes. But they're going to find us. Ethan squeezed his shoulder. Not if we move smart. Rusty barked twice, his signal for immediate danger. Ethan peered outside the crevice. Two silhouettes were now on the ridge trail below, men in dark field gear, moving silently, holding devices that pulsed with faint blue light. Tracking equipment. Ethan felt his heart jolt. He ducked back inside. They're close. Liam clung to Rusty, who growled low, ready to defend. Ethan looked up at the narrow opening in the rock above them. "We climb," he said. "It's the only path they won't expect." The rock face was steep but jagged enough to provide handholds. Ethan lifted Liam first, guiding his feet into crevices. Rusty scrambled up after them with surprising grace. Ethan climbed last, muscles burning, lungs tight. Below, the two men entered the alcove. One spoke in a cold, clipped voice. He was here, recently. Ethan froze. They were hunting him specifically. Ethan reached the top ledge, pulling himself onto a narrow plateau. He gathered Liam and Rusty close. The forest stretched endlessly ahead. Danger and salvation intertwined. Liam looked up at him, voice trembling. "Why us, Dad?" Ethan stared into the trees, jaw clenched. "Because Raymond Calloway wasn't hiding from Polaris," he whispered. "He was protecting someone. Protecting us." The realization hit him like a blow. The capsule, the maps, the warnings. They weren't random. Ethan's connection to this mystery ran deeper than he imagined. And now, the truth was closing in on them from every direction. They moved along the knife edge of the mountain as if the ridge itself were deciding whether to keep them or throw them off. The wind had picked up, cold and insistent, flattening Ethan's jacket against his ribs and making Liam's small body shiver despite the layers. Rusty padded ahead, never ranged too far, glancing back often as if counting them. Below, the forest rolled in dark waves. Somewhere down there, Polaris was combing the trees with drones and quiet men in darker clothes. Up here, the world felt thinner, but at least it still felt theirs. By late afternoon, the sky had dimmed to pewter. Ethan checked the hand-drawn map again, tracing the route Raymond Calloway had marked in red. "We're close," he murmured. Liam tugged his sleeve. "Dad, what if the place he marked is dangerous?" Ethan considered that. "It probably is," he admitted softly. But he still wanted someone to reach it. And right now, walking away is more dangerous than understanding what they're chasing. Rusty barked once, sharply, drawing their attention to a narrow break in the cliff wall ahead, almost invisible from a distance. The entrance looked like nothing, just a dark slit where stone had cracked and grown apart. But as they approached, Ethan saw the faint trace of human hands, chisel marks buried beneath lichen, a subtle smoothing of rock edges. "He was here," Ethan whispered, more to himself than Liam. Rusty slipped inside, tail low but steady. Ethan followed with Liam close behind. The passage narrowed, then widened abruptly into a cavern carved from the mountain's heart. Instead of stalactites and raw stone, they found structure, reinforced beams, a crude door, and a metal plaque bolted beside it. "R. Calloway Field Station." Liam's eyes widened. "He built all this?" Ethan nodded slowly, throat tightening. "Looks like it." The door was heavy, but the old key from the wooden box slid into the lock as if it had been used yesterday. The tumblers clicked in a low, satisfying sequence. Ethan pushed the door open, and cool, preserved air washed over them. Inside was a compact chamber, part lab, part shelter. Shelves lined the walls, stocked with labeled containers and notebooks. A table dominated the center, and on it sat an object Ethan recognized instantly. An empty cradle, the same shape as the capsule in the tree. It belonged here. Liam stepped closer to the cradle. "So the tree wasn't supposed to be where it stayed," he said quietly. Ethan nodded. "No, it was hidden there temporarily." Rusty paced around the room, nose working overtime, then stopped near a metal panel on the wall, whining softly. Ethan approached. A small speaker and an old switch had been installed there, wires running to an ancient battery in the corner. Someone had left the system intact. Ethan swallowed. Only one way to find out if this still works. He flipped the switch. The speaker crackled. Then a voice emerged, thin with age but unmistakably human. "If you're hearing this," the voice said, "you either ignored the warnings or had no choice. I'm betting on the latter." Ethan froze. Liam's hand found his. Rusty sat, staring at the speaker as if recognizing the weight of the sound. "My name is Raymond Calloway," the recording continued. "Once upon a time, Polaris paid me to study anomalies in this mountain. Strange seismic readings, unexplained heat signatures, something alive deep in fault lines. They wanted to weaponize what we found. I wanted to understand it." There was a pause, a tired exhale. "Turns out, we both underestimated it." Ethan's heart hammered. Calloway's voice grew rougher. "We discovered a microorganism down there, if you can call it that. Not virus, not fungus, not like anything in our textbooks. It fed on stress in rock, on pressure. We thought it could stabilize fault zones, even harness geothermal energy. But it responded to us, to fear, to sound, to movement." Liam shivered. "Dad," Ethan squeezed his hand, "I'm here." The recording crackled again. "When they tried to extract too much, the mountain almost tore itself apart. I moved the primary sample, the capsule, off-site, hid it in a living thing that could contain pressure better than steel, an old pine." The room seemed to shrink around them. "Polaris wanted the capsule back," Calloway's voice went on. "I refused. They tried to erase me, but before they could, I built this station, left maps, left warnings." A long silence stretched, broken only by a faint cough. Then his tone shifted, softer, almost breaking. "If you're Ethan, if by some miracle my daughter's boy found this, you need to know this wasn't how I wanted our story to go." Ethan felt like the ground dropped away. Liam looked up sharply. "Dad, he said your name." Ethan's eyes burned. "Yeah," he whispered. "He did." The recording continued, voice fraying. "I failed your mother. I chose the mountain over my family, thinking I could make the world safer for you. Instead, I just made enemies with deep pockets. But I did one thing right. I made sure they'd need you more than you'd ever need them. The land is yours. The proof is here. The organism, it can change everything, but only if it's not controlled by fear and greed." The audio glitched, then returned. "Take the capsule to this station before opening it. If Polaris reaches it first, they won't bury it again. They'll use it." The recording clicked off, leaving an aching silence. Ethan could barely breathe. "He was your grandfather?" Liam asked gently. Ethan nodded, swallowing hard. "Looks that way." Rusty nudged Ethan's leg, grounding him. After a long moment, Ethan straightened. "We still have the capsule in the tree, and those men are closing in. We have to move fast." They backtracked carefully, ghosting along less obvious routes. Dusk painted the forest in iron and bruised lavender by the time they approached the ancient pine again. Ethan's muscles shook from fatigue, but adrenaline kept him moving. Rusty reached the tree first and froze. Someone had been there. The cut around the bulge was wider now. Bark shavings littered the ground, but the capsule was still wedged inside. Whoever had tried to remove it hadn't finished. Ethan's jaw tightened. "They were interrupted," he muttered, "likely by their own search grid." He glanced at Liam. "We're taking it now." Using leverage from the hatchet and a fallen branch, Ethan pried at the capsule until it slid free with a grinding sigh, leaving a hollow wound in the tree. The metal vibrated faintly in his hands, humming like a living thing. Liam went pale. "It's singing," he whispered. Ethan felt it too, a low thrumming that made his teeth ache. They carried the capsule between them, retracing their route to the hidden field station. By the time they reached it, full dark had fallen, and the forest pulsed with strange echoes. Twice they heard distant shouts, Polaris teams sweeping the upper ridges. Each sound pushed them faster. Inside the station, Ethan lowered the capsule into the empty cradle it was built for. Instantly, the hum quieted, as if the mountain itself exhaled. Liam let out a shaky breath. It likes it here. Ethan wasn't sure that was the word, but he understood the relief in his son's voice. All right, he murmured. This is it. He retrieved the key from his pocket, the one carved with concentric circles, and fit it into a hidden slot near the capsule's ring lock. Mechanisms shifted, metal whispering. The top quarter of the capsule rose slowly with a hiss of equalizing pressure. Beneath the lid, instead of glowing sludge or something monstrous, they saw stone. Fractured, dark stone swirling with veins of muted light, like captured lightning froze in rock. Faint filaments pulsed inside it, responding to their presence. Liam's face went ashen. Dad, that's inside the mountain? Ethan nodded slowly. A piece of its heart. Alongside the stone sat a stack of drives and paper files sealed in plastic. Ethan flipped one folder open. Diagrams, energy yields, models showing fault lines stabilizing under the organism's influence, then collapsing catastrophically when overstimulated. A single note in Calloway's handwriting. They want to use fear as fuel. If they succeed, they won't just control energy. They'll control earthquakes. Nations. Liam whispered. Is that why they're hunting us? Because we have this? Ethan closed the folder gently. Yeah, because with this, we could prove what they've been doing, or what they tried to do. Outside, faint footsteps scraped stone. Polaris had finally found the station. Ethan's mind raced. Fight, run, hide. He looked at Liam clutching Rusty's fur, eyes huge. No more running, no more repeating the family pattern of disappearing into the wild. He grabbed one drive and a folder, stuffing them into his pack. The rest he sealed back in the capsule and turned the key, locking it down. Then he yanked loose 2 wires connected to the cradle, redirecting power to the old speaker system. When the first Polaris operative stepped into the doorway, flashlight sweeping, Ethan was waiting, standing between them and the capsule with Rusty growling at his side. Easy, the man said, raising one hand while the other gripped a sidearm. He didn't quite point yet. Another figure moved in behind him, scanning the room. We're here for the container. You don't understand what you're holding. Ethan forced a grim smile. I understand enough. I've seen your maps, your projections, the part where entire towns are labeled acceptable collateral. The man's eyes narrowed. You read classified material. Yeah, Ethan said, and I copied it. He jerked his chin toward his pack. You shoot me, those files go places you don't want. A lie, but delivered like a promise. The second operative stepped forward. You don't have the network for that. Ethan shrugged. Doesn't matter. I have names, symbols, coordinates. Enough for any reporter, ranger, or angry politician to start asking questions. You really want that spotlight pointed at a mountain full of secrets? The men exchanged a look. Outside pressures, careers, cover stories, budgets, pressed silently into the room. Rusty bared his teeth, a low rumble in his chest. Liam, voice trembling but firm, spoke up. You can't take this. My great-grandpa died trying to keep it from you. The word hung there. Great-grandpa. The first operative's jaw tightened. Minutes stretched. Finally, the man exhaled. The organism stays contained. The capsule doesn't move. You walk away. We walk away. And this place never existed in your story. Ethan shook his head. You're going to reinforce this station. Keep the mountain safe without experimenting on it again. And I want written acknowledgement of land rights Raymond Calloway left. His notes include a legal transfer. You know that. Silence again. Ethan's bluff was built on a single deed page he'd glimpsed among the files, but they didn't need to know how fragile his certainty was. Eventually, the man nodded once, curtly. We'll see what can be arranged. It wasn't a victory so much as an armistice, but for the first time in a long time, the terms weren't written entirely by other people. Weeks later, papers arrived through channels too strange to explain. Land titles bearing Ethan's name, a quiet stipend for environmental stewardship, and a signed confidentiality agreement that said everything by what it didn't include. No mention of organisms, no mention of capsules. Just a mountain, a legacy parcel, and a family finally anchored to something that wouldn't be taken overnight. Liam hung the deed on the wall of their small cabin near the forest edge, smiling like it was a painting of the future. Ethan often hiked back to the ridge with Liam and Rusty, stopping just short of where the hidden field station entrance lay. The mountain felt calmer now, its hum reduced to a steady, distant heartbeat. Sometimes, when the wind curved just right, he thought he could hear his grandfather's voice in the rustle of pines. Tired, apologetic, but proud. One evening, as the sun turned the valley gold, Liam slipped his hand into his father's. Do you think he can see us, Raymond? He asked. Ethan looked out over the endless dark green and slow river bands and nodded quietly. Yeah, kid. I think he finally can. Rusty sat beside them, ears relaxed, watching the world stretch out beneath their feet like a story that had finally found its ending. Ethan closed his eyes briefly, gratitude rising in his chest, not to Polaris, not to luck, but to the strange, stubborn grace that had led a broken man and his son to a hidden bunker in the forest and a secret that tried to swallow them, but instead gave them something else, a home, a name that meant more than a wound, and a mountain that for the first time in generations didn't feel like a place to hide, but a place to belong.